laws and is shown on attachments A and B. So being in the location that's shown on the plan that was provided, as well as with the state that they said these are the renderings of the unit that we'll propose. And then a second condition would be that the property, the use itself, the accessory apartment, would be located on the property in compliance with the ordinance as it regulates such use. And that prior to occupancy, a deed restricting or limiting the occupancy would be recorded. That would be provided back to the Community Development Department. That would state that the accessory apartment will be used, occupied, and maintained in accordance with provisions of the zoning ordinance regulating such use, and that the property owner must reside in either the principal structure or the accessory structure. That is a condition that we have applied in other circumstances where accessory apartments have come forward to ensure future compliance with the zoning ordinance. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have either now or after you have them after public input.
Are there any questions?
There any other variants required? Please use
your mic.
Yeah.
Is it green?
Yeah,
It's green, sorry. Probably at the bottom.
okay. Are there any other variances required for electric and sewage and water?
No, sir, they would connect to public water and sewer. So they're not asking for an exception to that. And then as far as the electrical connection, that would be required to be in compliance with building code.
I have a question. Is there any regulation that provides for future owners of this property? What would happen? Or, I mean, it is metal, is that correct? It's a metal container.
Yes, ma'am.
Has this ever been done here?
Not to my knowledge, no, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted. Any other questions?
I have a question. It looks like from the,
Speak into the mic, please.
sorry, it looks like
Yeah,
from
tap
the, is it on? Yeah, it's great. It looks like nobody's ever had a problem listening, hearing me. It looks like from the photo that the structure is actually finished by the person who sells the structure. Is that correct? So they're not buying something out of a shipping yard and doing all the work themselves. It's the person who provides the structure who does the interior work to make it habitable?
It's my understanding that they have contracted with someone that does the work to convert the shipping containers that they have into dwellings. And the applicants may be able to speak more to that, but my understanding it would come complete.
Right, so it kind of comes complete like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions of the board?
What type of foundation would be used?
I will have to defer to the applicant, but it's concrete base. Yeah, concrete base.
It looks like it has pillars.
Looks like it has pillars.
That's the way the shipping crate.
That's the way the
Yeah.
That's on the top.
That's right. You're new and you have a right to ask.
Yeah, I know about shipping containers, so
Okay,
in my experience, and where you're, yeah, it's a
Oh.
concrete pad that's supposed to sell.
Yes.
are we ready to open this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Madam Chair, if you would, let the applicant come forward first. If you look at the agenda, what we'll do is for each one of these is staff will make a presentation. That's item A.
Yes.
And then B would be applicants' comments, if any, and
Okay.
then open the public hearing. We'll go
Okay,
on after
thank
that.
you.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
yes, ma'am.
Applicant?
Hi, Debbie Stickiness, 45 8th Street. We are making this application so that we can use this structure for my daughter. so that she is the one who'd be living in it in our backyard, which would give her some level of independence while also having security of being right there on our property. We have contracted with the owner of the company who has been making the shipping container for us so that it's very personalized and it would come completely built to our yard and then placed on the foundation. And we have a local contractor that we're working with who would do the work to put in the dry well in our yard and to assist with the plumbing and the water and the electricity. And if you have questions specific to the unit itself, Roger is the owner of the company that is actually, he is the constructor of the unit.
Questions?
Would you have a problem if it was like?
Speak into your mic.
Would you have a problem if you had like T111 on the outside or vinyl siding to match the house, to make it look not like a shipping crate?
First of all, good evening. My name is Roger Rule, and yes, I'm the owner of a tiny house container, and I built them in Ridgewood, Maryland. I see your point of putting T111 on it. Certainly, that could be done. I just don't recommend it because the way you saw the picture before, the container is corrugated, so it has a little bit of a, I would say, a feature or some characteristics in it. I have already matched the colors to the house. We will also put shutters on it, white shutters to match the house. So at this point, I believe that we can really match this shipping container to the house, and it's not required to do any further improvements in the aesthetics. Having said that, it can be done.
Okay, thank you.
Any further
What is
questions?
the height, overall height of this?
The shipping container itself is 8 feet and 6 inches, and then it sits on the concrete pad, and it will be, the original version is to put it on concrete blocks, and it puts another like 10 inches on it, so it's about 9 feet and 2 inches from the concrete foundation.
So is the pad gonna be flush with the ground? And then you're saying come up 10 more inches?
Good evening. I'm the general contractor. The slab would be above grade level, not by much. I believe the plans dictated for. I believe the plans call for a 6-inch pad, if I remember right. So
Ours is net detail. It just
Okay.
shows up 10 by 20 pad.
okay, it would be a 10 by 20. We would be digging it down 8 inches, doing a base, and then doing a 6-inch porch slab with 4,000 PSI.
And the overall height again is 8 foot, 6 inches plus something. What I'm getting at, Mr. Hall, is how much is it gonna be over top of the 6-foot fence?
A rough guesstimate would be about 2.5 feet.
Okay.
But where it's set in the property, I mean, you probably really wouldn't even see this from the road whatsoever, because the fence goes all the way around, and just the way the property is, house on that corner, house here. If you drove by, you're not gonna see it.
Yeah.
So that's,
And in looking, we've been by the site and looking, it's not that much, it wouldn't be that much difference than what the other garages and sheds and stuff are sticking up around.
correct. It would actually be shorter than an average garage. The garages we're doing now are 18 foot tall at peak.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This particular item, is the living quarters only? Is that, you're going to use it as living quarters?
Yes.
There's no kitchen in there, right? It's just toilet.
There's like a kitchenette, so there's a kitchen sink, there's a microwave, there is not a stove, and there's like a dorm size refrigerator. So it's kind of a studio apartment kind of setup.
Any further questions of the owners? Yes,
So it will be on concrete blocks on the pad, or it'll be flat on the pad.
It would be on, both variants could work. I recommend to put it on blocks or on metal feet, and we can attach it if necessary to the ground. We can bolt it to the ground. I recommended to put it on blocks. I believe I have submitted some paperwork on how we typically set up. We have it lifted off like about 10 inches off the ground total when it sits on the blocks.
so it will not be flush to the concrete.
That is the original setting because the shipping containers, they need to be supported in all four corners, but not anywhere else. So it's better just to lift them up a little bit so they structurally keep their integrity. We can lower it if it's, aesthetically necessary. We can lower it. I just don't recommend it.
So that's gonna be portable. You'll be able to move it.
The way they are designed, they are portable, but if it needs to be permanent, it can be attached and bolted to the ground with metal feet. We have those available.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? Yes. I see. We'd like to move on now to open public hearing on this particular item. Are there any people signed up to? One? Okay. Sarah?
No. Are you okay? I spoke for Sarah.
Okay. You have no further comments or questions or input?
I don't believe so.
Does anybody else have questions on the board? Yes, please go ahead.
So could there be a time limit on how long that portable unit could be there? Eventually, you remove it when someone moves out, and you don't re-rent it.
That's a good question. Would
you oppose a time limit how long you can keep the sea container in your property as a temporary residence?
What kind of time limit would we be looking at?
Well, say when your daughter moves out.
So we're talking a number of years?
Yes.
I guess I wouldn't oppose that. So if we're saying something like a 10-year time limit, that would be reasonable. 2 or 3 years, I would expect her to be there longer than that.
That's just, you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, go ahead, Mr.
I was
Robinson.
going to say that the way you make it inoperable to live in it is pull out the water and sewer. And then it can stay and be a shed.
So what I would suggest is you can have a condition that you impose that would limit the variance approval to the applicant, and that, as long as the structure is being occupied as a dwelling as provided here by the applicant, then the variance would be approved and the structure could stay there, but it would not run with the land. So if the daughter no longer lives there, then, or they sell the property, then the structure would have to be removed.
It would have to be removed. That's my concern. In reselling of the property, that people might want to use that as a rental. And I find that as prohibited, but nobody else for this particular item? Okay, then I close public hearing.
If we moved it back, move the structure back. Sorry about that. So, if we moved it back.
Is your thing not working?
Yeah, it's on. Hello. It's green.
Oh, maybe it went out.
Speak up. All right, I can do that. If we moved it back, because now the front of the container is at the back of the house. But there's, didn't bring my glasses, there's 20-some feet that it can go back closer to the back fence line. If we moved it back and closer to the other fence, it would look more like all the sheds that are back there that are on almost every piece of property surrounding her house. And even with the addition that Matt was talking about, it's still gonna be shorter than most of those sheds as far as height. Is there some problem with zoning if she moved it back? I know sheds are 3 feet, gotta be 3 feet off property line on both sides, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, how about this? Because it might be a dwelling. Is there another?
Accessory apartments are permitted by ordinance to meet the same setbacks as other accessory
Okay.
structures. So the structure could be 3 feet from the rear and the side property line.
Would you have a problem with moving it back?
We do need to have enough room to be able to open the doors, because
Oh, yeah.
there's
Oh,
doors.
you'll have
that
plenty
open.
of-
Oh, yes.
All I'm talking about is taking the shed where, I shouldn't say shed, container, and just moving it back a little bit further so that it's more in line with the other sheds
Yeah, I'm just
around.
trying to
Yes,
figure out
it-
how
it
many
could-
feet.
It could work. What we just have to take in consideration is that the backside, I don't know if you saw the picture, the backside that faces the yard, so not the front of the house. The backside has where the container doors open up. So these container doors can open up, so if we were to set it too far back, well,
Well, it looked like the side,
Yeah.
the doors look like they're,
the
In
doors.
the front.
There's three.
Or in-
There's 3 doors. 2 of them you will see there.
We're gonna pull up the door
Sure,
pictures.
yes.
okay. So
So,
it shows the white door, and then is those others, French doors to open up?
yes, correct. But you can also see the container doors. They're on the back side that you don't see the first picture with the fence in it. So the containers over the back side actually open up.
The double doors down.
The double doors.
So it's on front and back.
Yeah,
Correct, correct. So there's 3 sides where the doors open. So the 2 that you can see, the white door opens up, the French door on the side, and the back door, also these container doors open up.
According to what you have here on your print, looking at today, from the back fence, all the way at the back of the property, to the front, to the back edge of your shed, or, I'm sorry, this container,
fine.
where it's at now, you have 27 foot.
Yeah, so you could.
Yeah, so it could be moved back, and
How far back do you?
and even side by side, you have 12 and a half
Yeah, you
foot.
got 12 and a half, you can move it over
I think.
To make it look more like what the rest,
the rest of the neighborhood.
What the
I
rest
think,
of the neighborhood
building
stuff
a
looks like
path,
now.
for me, moving it farther back, that's absolutely no problem. So I think if you,
I mean, the only thing that I see that's really taken in, that would be, you probably have maybe another 15 or 20 foot of electrical wire you got in the ground, and another 15, 20 foot of sewage pipe and water lines you got.
I think that's fine. The container doors themselves, I think the restricting factor are the container doors, which are 4 feet. So if they need 4 feet, so if you set
So
it back.
if you move it 6 foot off the line, you're still fine, you're within
I think
3 foot.
if you tell us
Yeah.
how much
Well, we're just asking if it's possible.
That's possible.
Because the way it is, you kind of got it set so far to the front, and I understand bringing the back of it to where it's along the edge of the house also.
I think originally we just wanted to line it up with the house, so it
Yes,
kind of
sir.
looks like a garage rather than a shed. But,
Right.
Okay,
uh,
All right, Darla, do you have a comment?
No, ma'am, we were just talking about the fact that, you know, the issue before you is a shipping container the type of structure that would be appropriate to be used as an accessory apartment? That's the variance that they're requesting. And I understand your discussion, in looking at perhaps it being acceptable if it were located on the property similar to that of a shed. My only consideration for you is that we don't have any other property owners around that have come out to speak tonight. They all did receive letters from us advising them of the meeting tonight. I would just say to you that you would be moving it closer to those adjacent properties.
Oh,
You know, however, again, you know, I'm not hearing, you know, I don't know if that's something that you would want to.
I wouldn't want to see it. I'd like to, you would have more than 3 feet in the back, on the side. I'd say it would need more footage because of that. But even if you moved it one length of the fencing that's there, it would help the visual from outside.
I mean, the garages and stuff around there, they're not sitting right out in the middle of the yard and stuff.
Now, this is kind of sitting in the middle of the yard, what it looks like to me.
Yes.
And I was thinking, when I look around your neighborhood and I see a shed over here looks like a barn and this, you know, they're all tucked in to the corners of the property. And this is kind of sitting out. I was thinking if it sat back closer to that corners,
We would have no issue with that at all.
the only thing I'm asking is how far forward from those double doors do you need to bring it up? Matt, or?
He said 6 foot. 6 foot. He said the doors open up.
yeah, so the doors, they swing open 4 feet.
Okay.
So obviously you want to have a little room
Extra
there
room to move
to
stuff
sit or
around.
something, so you.
So if you added the 4 feet plus the 3 foot that's needed, that would be 7, you'd have time.
Yep.
Okay. All right, because I wouldn't want to see it that close to the fence either.
Yep.
Okay. So all public comment is closed. Members of the board, please evaluate your decision. I have one question, Darla. Can the decision include, upon the sale of the house, it be removed?
The variance can be granted to this property owner exclusively. And that's if one of two things, either the unit is no longer occupied as an accessory dwelling unit, it goes, or when the Mr. Kunis sells the property, then it would be removed.
Okay.
If the future owner wanted to also use a shipping container as an accessory apartment, they would need to come in to ask for that themselves.
I see. Okay. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant this with the following conditions. One, that it be moved back, I'll give you 8 feet. Is that okay? From the fence line up to the back. How much do you think you're gonna need on the side? The ordinance says 3 feet. You want it out a little further, like 4 or 5 feet?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, yeah, the doors will not.
No, the back, that's why I went out 8 feet for the back.
Okay.
The side has no doors on it, that side has.
Right, the backside
Right.
there has no doors.
How close do you want that? Matt, you got a problem?
I would think if we could set it at an 8 by 8 on both sides would be more than sufficient.
That's fine.
Three lawnmower widths.
Okay, do we want on pad, or is the pad going in automatically or not?
Yes.
Pad's going in automatically, okay, that it have a pad, and that at the sale of a house, it can no longer be a residential piece of property. Now, there's two choices here. We can say it's got to be moved, or they have to take the water and sewer out, which then it becomes a shed, which we allow shed. So that's up to us, so it,
Very much it.
I've seen some longer around.
I believe that we should, my concern is it not become a rental apartment.
Well, that's why I'm saying the water and sewer's got to come out, so it can be rented.
Yes, I think add it to this, yes, add that to the motion.
Anything else over there that you can think of that we?
I'm looking something up real quick.
Okay.
Okay. So far, does that meet?
Yes,
Yeah, that's under
Donna, is there a problem?
Madam Chair,
That's a good idea.
Well, then they might get stuck, so
Madam Chair, if I might.
you're out of here.
Okay,
So we had, in the staff report, we had two conditions already recommended if you determined it was appropriate to approve the variance. We had two conditions that are in the staff report. One is the shipping container structure shall be located on the subject property as an accessory apartment use in compliance with all other applicable laws. And we had in here, and as shown on attachments A and B. And what I'm gonna say is here, except that the structure shall be permitted to be set back a minimum of 8 feet from the rear and side property lines, and that no additions are permitted to the shipping container structure. So that would be
that's
condition one.
perfect.
Condition one rolls in what we had and also the setback question. Condition two, as recommended by staff, stated that the accessory apartment will be constructed, used, occupied, and maintained in accordance with the provisions of the zoning ordinance, because they're in there,
Yes.
regulating such use. And so they will also have to still comply with the zoning ordinance requirements for accessory apartments.
That's right.
And then prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit for the accessory apartment, a copy of a recorded deed restriction shall be provided to the Community Development Department. And that would state, quote, "The accessory apartment will be used, occupied, and maintained in accordance with the provisions of the zoning ordinance regulating such use. The property owner must reside in either the principal structure or the accessory structure." And then we would have a third condition. And this third condition is the condition that would state, this variance shall permit the use of the shipping container as a dwelling, as an accessory apartment, actually, at such time as the accessory apartment is no longer used for dwelling purposes. We had discussed it being removed. Is that what you're looking at?
I wasn't saying removed, I was saying, again, it can't be occupied if you don't have water and sewer.
Okay, so there's
It
nothing,
can't be a shed then to put his lawnmower, their lawnmower in it or whatever, because they don't have any shed or anything on the
There's
property.
nothing
Right?
back there.
Nothing back there.
right, so you would permit it to be, continue
Storage
to be in the only thing I would say to you is that from a staff standpoint, that kind of creates an issue for us in being able to show, is it being occupied as a dwelling or not, right? So I would, I guess we have it either way. Either you allow it to stay and it's got lawnmowers in it, or you make it move because we
You can
have to
cut the water
show.
and sewer off,
Right. That's
township,
true.
because you just did.
Um,
Or can you
So,
say that it
the
cannot
second part to that would be,
Julie, how about, could you say, see, I'm a little concerned about requiring the property owner to be in residence, because if the child is 45 years old and, mom is hospitalized for a longer period, for example, we don't want the child to have to move out of her home, because really the whole purpose of this is to provide some independence for their child. Could you put that the property could not be sold or transferred with that unit as a dwelling unit, or?
So there are two parts. The reason that there's the condition that staff had recommended, which I read to you, that was condition 2. And that's the condition that talks about the owner shall reside in either the dwelling or the accessory apartment. That's actually in the zoning ordinance. That's a requirement of the zoning ordinance.
Right.
But for us, we were looking for a condition like this with cases such as this to make sure that people are on notice and that there's actually a deed restriction that's recorded with the property to put future owners on notice.
Okay.
So if you're looking to say, so the question I have for you is, are you looking to say you don't want to limit this if the property changes hands in the future? Or are you trying to limit it? Because I think we were going both ways a
I'm
little bit.
still trying to limit it, because I think we all want to ensure that the child has an independent place, that she has an independent place to live, but we don't want that then to become a rental for, anyone else to be able to do that. And I just don't want her to have to leave just because maybe mom isn't
I
there.
understand. So I would suggest that in this case, now, again, the ordinance says the property owner must reside in either. So if that circumstance happened, it would be wise to add the daughter's name as part owner of the property. But that would, if that situation arises in the future and she's, like you said, she's 45 years old and whatever, I don't, as long as you don't have a problem, I would say we could add the property owner or this, and we put the daughter's name, shall reside in the dwelling or the accessory apartment. So that would open it up. And so we just need to make sure we have the, daughter's name to put in the condition.
One concern I have is the deed really needs to make clear that when the property is sold, this does not apply. Because it's a little confusing putting this language in the deed where the new person may think, well, I can have an accessory structure as long as I comply with this. We need to also put in the deed that this ends when the property is sold.
Absolutely.
So that would,
Yes.
But you have auxiliary structures all around the place. And if you pull this out, she can somebody else that buys it can put a shed right there and.
No, I'm talking
No,
about
he's,
apartment, maybe.
Oh, I understand, that's why we were thinking, when she sells it, that ends the apartment.
Right,
yes,
It can be a shed, but it can't be a.
that's what we're saying.
right.
so I'll need to add the language, and I'll get with the applicant. We will make sure that we have the daughter's name. So it would read the property owner or, and we'll have her name, must reside in either the principal structure or the accessory structure. And then we're gonna add a statement that states that when the property, or should the property be sold, the shipping container shall no longer be allowed to be used as an accessory apartment.
That's excellent.
Is that all right with you?
Is that all right with you, Julie? All right.
I made the motion. Do I gotta restate all that again?
No, I got it. I have it.
I was
I'm writing
gonna
it
say,
down right now.
let's shape it.
I'm writing it down. I'll get the name and,
Okay. So can we go ahead and officially vote?
yes, ma'am, there are going to be 2 conditions still. They are modified as we've discussed here, and I have actually read aloud into the record, which I'm happy to do again if you want me to.
No. All right, the question is that do we accept or not accept the motion that we have heard from Donna with the conditions that she based with the owner at present time?
And Madam Chair, I would say, is there a motion to approve this,
Okay,
subject to those conditions? I didn't know if someone had made a
I
motion.
made a motion.
Yes.
You did,
Okay,
okay,
yes.
yes.
right. All right.
I'll
Julie,
second it.
I get to go first?
You're the
Was
first
there,
vote.
I agree.
was there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay.
I, the will approve.
Aye.
Chair approves. Motion is granted as spoken at the minutes. Thank you.
You need the town of Columbia Beach back? Oh, I'm not.
I have
Dolly, would you like to go for the next?
Yes, ma'am, I would love to. So the next item is also a public hearing. This is for variance case VAR 24-05. This is a request by Mike and Dawn Ward. The applicants are requesting a 2-foot variance to the maximum 4-foot allowable fence height in the front yard. This is relative to section 18-3A of the ordinance. The allowable fence height in the front yard in residential districts within the town is a maximum of 4 feet. The applicants are proposing a 6-foot tall fence in the front yard. We're part of that yard, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. The subject property is identified here on your screen. The subject property fronts the south line of Hamilton Street, west of Bancroft Avenue, and is known as 210 Hamilton Street. It's also identified as tax map parcel 3A1242, lot 10. The property is zoned residential general R2 and is occupied by a single family dwelling. If you look at this slide, and I'm just going to point out to you that you can see in this slide how the subject property, as identified, is a long, slender lot,
Yes.
right? It is, if you look just to the right of the property, to the right of the property is 204 Hamilton Street, and that is the smaller block.
Yes.
That is basically, adjacent to the 210 Hamilton's front yard. It goes past their front of their house just a little bit. We're going to talk about that again in just a minute. This is an aerial view of the property. And with this, you can see 210 Hamilton, which is the subject property. You also can see 204, which is the smaller parcel, and then the house that is 605 Bancroft behind the adjacent property. The applicants are requesting a variance to permit a 6-foot tall fence in their front yard directly along the boundary of their property adjacent to 204 Hamilton Street. And again, that's identified, it's identified there. The applicants have provided that based on the unique layout of their lot with their neighbor's lot, as we talked about, you can see how small the neighbor's lot is compared. It's actually a legally non-conforming lot. The house was built a long time ago, so it's a very small lot. So if you look at that, the neighbor's house and the side yard basically abuts their front yard.
Yes.
Right? And so the applicants indicated that in August of 2023, their neighbor purchased a camper, and the neighbor is allowed to park a camper by the zoning ordinance in their side yard. However, in this particular case, given the layout of the lots, that camper's location is directly adjacent to their front yard, even though it's a legal spot. The applicant have indicated that, the camper's proximity combined with the fact that the camper, the HVAC is constantly running in the camper. There's a lot of time that the camper is occupied. I think there may be some question about whether it's being occupied as a residence, or it's definitely perhaps being occupied as an extension of the residence that does exist there. But because of that, they have persistent noise, light pollution into the bedroom windows, and exhaust from the unit itself directly towards their property. The applicants have sought different ways to mitigate the issue. They planted some spring laurels, which we'll see in a picture in just a minute. And that was recommended to them by a local nursery because the spring laurels will grow fast and grow tall, which would help to eliminate the views that they have of the camper. But the applicants have found now that 4 of their plants that they planted have died, and they believe that's directly related to the exhaust from the camper running so often or / constantly. The proximity of the proposed fence to the property line would result in the need, according to the applicants, for the fence to be constructed with the finished side out. Because of the chain link fence that's generally along the shared property line, they're going to locate the fence a little bit off of that shared property line. And so they are going to face the finished side of the fence towards their property versus the side of the camper as they propose. So next slide. This is the picture that shows their front yard in the top picture. And in the top picture, you can see, their front porch in relation to the camper. And then the bottom picture is the picture of 4 of the plants and trees that have died as a result of the proximity to the exhaust and everything from the camper. So just wanted you to see that. We talked with the last case about the guidance that the state code and zoning ordinance provides for you in your consideration of variances. I won't go back over this slide with you. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. But from a staff standpoint, we will offer you our findings related to the ordinance and state code guidance for you. Next slide. So this is the plat of the subject property. You'll see the red line here on the plan. That is the location where the applicants are proposing the 6-foot-tall solid board and batten fence. It would be permitted up until the front corner of their house. And then the variance that they're seeking is from that front corner of their house out to the street. Now, given the applicants are proposing that they would cut the fence down so that as you begin to reach the right of way, that they would still have site visibility down to 4 feet. So it would just taper down some towards the front. Staff is agreeable with that. Staff recommends approval of this request. There is a unique physical condition in this case relating to the property. Staff believes that is not shared generally by other properties in the area, and that this unique physical condition of the proximity of the side yard and the front yard is would necessitate granting the variance. It's a unique situation. Given the fence location, authorization of this variance would not be a detriment to adjacent properties, and that the character of the area would not be changed by granting the variance. The impact of the side yard and the front yard in this case really affects these 2 property owners, and it doesn't affect other properties in the area. Staff does recommend the imposition of the following condition, and that is with the approval of this request, a 6-foot tall solid board and batten fence shall be permitted along the left side property line of 210 Hamilton Street, adjacent to 204 Hamilton Street, as identified in attachment A, and is permitted to be constructed with the finished side facing inward towards their subject property. All other fencing on the property would be required to comply with the zoning ordinance requirements for such fencing, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
You mentioned a minute ago, do you have a problem with a step down like you talked about, 8 foot? We did this, I forget what road.
When we walk the
We
properties,
stepped it down to 4 feet instead of just 8, 4. It came down with so many feet after the house.
They have proposed the step down. From a staff standpoint, I don't have a problem because when visiting the site myself, I didn't think that there was the need for the step down because of the street and where their driveway is, it's on the other side of their lot, so they're not gonna have a problem seeing in both directions. I don't believe. So, but they have offered to do that. So we could say with a step down to 4 feet or a blank distance length,
yes,
We did that before.
yes, we've done that before, and I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wonder why that isn't being recommended. But
In visiting the site myself, I didn't believe that the 6 foot, even if they went to the front of the fence where the camper is located, because that house is so close to the road,
yes,
right? The drop down of the fence is not gonna make a difference because it's basically gonna be in line with the house that's on lot 204, so you're not gonna gain anything by it. You're not gonna gain any site distance because you've got that dwelling that's right next to it.
204.
yes.
So, yeah, see how far out the dwelling comes?
Yeah.
That, tapering the fence down there is not gonna make any difference.
The visual appearance of the neighborhood, though, would totally change with the 6 foot all the way out to the road.
If you did that, I don't know what sort of panels they come in, and the applicants are willing to do that. So I believe that they'll be able to talk to you,
Okay.
about what distance they were thinking about for the step down. Like I said, from a staff standpoint, I didn't think you were gaining anything because of the house. So.
Well, that dog in the neighborhood didn't like Steve at all.
Huh?
That dog didn't like us.
I didn't like him either. He stayed on his side of the fence, I stayed on mine.
All right. Is that it, Dollars?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open applicants' comments.
I'm Dawn Ward.
I'm Michael Ward. Do you have any questions?
Please talk into the mic.
Do you have any questions for us?
Why do you only want 6 feet?
Because the ordinance states you can't go
The
over 6
ordinance
feet.
says so.
So we're planning on complying with the ordinance and then bringing that last section and tapering down. This is not working.
See if it's on the green line zone.
There's no green light.
Oh,
It doesn't have a green light.
We really wanted to keep the shrubbery in 10-foot level. We were hoping that the spray world was going to do the job of aesthetically blocking.
Well, your back lots, the back fence is 6 feet. Is 6 feet, so, because I noticed we
Yes.
were over there looking.
Oh, okay.
You stop that at the, I'll say, the middle of the house.
Mhm.
So you come 6 feet all the way to the front of the
Right.
house without any problem.
Mhm.
That, it's about a 48-foot run from the existing fence in the back to the front. And then we were going to taper that last section from 6 feet to 4 feet, just for the look of for the aesthetic.
That's what we were thinking of, a step down,
Right.
right where you have to stop at 6 feet. Then you
Taper.
Correct.
taper down to
Taper
4.
down.
Right,
Correct.
make it look pretty.
That sounds very possible. Any other questions from the members?
I want to make a comment and I could get in trouble. This problem isn't your problem. It's your neighbor's problem, causing the problem for you all.
Well,
Are they here? Your neighbors here? Now that I shut my mouth off,
No.
maybe I can have it. But,
They didn't jump up real
I
fast.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's been a problem and we've tried to address the problem.
I understand.
Madam Chair, if I might, what was the distance? I didn't think you guys were gonna start, tapering down the fence until, because, I mean, you've got, the camper is like right at the edge. Can you switch to the other picture, sorry?
As you see the
Camper
picture.
is, go to, yeah, basically the camper is right at the edge. But I thought that at the front of the camper is where you were gonna taper down. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That, there's that one bush in front of the camper next to the sidewalk, and we're going to taper it down to the sidewalk area. And 6 feet is basically right underneath that window.
Yes.
Right in the very center of the bottom picture. That's right about the 6 foot
There
level.
where that dropout is of the.
Right.
Oh, but,
Yes.
just out of
Yeah,
curiosity,
bump out, yes.
do you know if that bump out's all the way out?
Do we what?
Know if that bump out is extended all the way out? Because it
All the
doesn't look
time.
like it's extended all the way
No,
out.
all the
'Cause a lot of them are along.
It's not extended all the way. Because of,
fence, it'd be
because of the
property
fence,
and
it's
everything.
extended out about this far.
Yeah.
Because there's, otherwise, you wouldn't be able to open the door on the other side. It's,
I don't know
you've
how
got
they
a
can-
driveway there, it's
I
about 8
don't know
feet.
how they
that's
open
all.
the door on the other side with the air conditioner in the way.
All right, let's stick to the ordinance.
It's part catty
Okay.
corner. It's not straight in.
We'll address that other issue, but
Okay.
Don't take the air
any other questions on this?
conditioner.
Are there any other fences in town that are over 6 feet,
No.
even the one by Grace?
That one is, there is one.
That one is?
Yes.
It's right behind Mike Gray's building.
Mhm.
I'm sure about that.
That would be a legally non-conforming
Been
fence.
there for 100 years.
Could be good.
I would, yes, I don't think a variance has been granted for that fence, but I would have to do research to tell you that.
Any other questions of the elders? Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
Any other offerings from the public?
Nobody has signed up at this time.
Pardon me?
Nobody has signed up at this time.
Thank you very much. All right, we will proceed to board evaluation and motion for the future.
You need to close the public hearing first.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, I forgot to close the public hearing as is now.
Did you get it? I get it. There you go.
Okay. I'm sorry, I apologize for that.
I make a motion that we grant the variance with the conditions that they've already suggested that they'll do, run it out, taper it down to the end, and, put the batting towards the side of their house like it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
And Madam Chair, sorry, I'm a stickler for, we have to have, and this gentleman will say, we got to get really specific when it comes to the conditions so that we will, there's no question when it comes to enforcement, that the condition's a legal condition that we can enforce and that everybody understands. So what I would say is that we would have the language that we had in the condition before, and we would say, I have a question for the applicants, that, you know, we said with the approval of this request, a 6 foot tall solid board and batten fence shall be permitted along the left side property line of 210 Hamilton Street, adjacent to 204 Hamilton Street, as identified on attachment A, with a step down to 4 feet occurring, and this is the part that we have to determine what that distance is. So within, I'm gonna say, the final 4 feet.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wanted to just run that by the applicants to make sure, is that, you know,
Go
the
from
final
6 to
4
4 to where?
feet.
I would be okay with stepping back 6 feet and tapering from 6 feet to 4 feet within that 6 foot distance.
6
Yes.
foot distance,
The
okay.
last 6 foot.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
6
foot.
feet will work, or is that too long range? Or we do want a 4 feet section that you taper from 6 to,
4 feet only be, I mean, this much.
Right, so you're okay with it?
That'd be,
being
that'd
6
be a
feet?
pretty steep take. I'm okay with
So
4
with
feet.
a step down to 4 feet within, from step down, we know it's from 6 feet to 4 feet within the
Front of the camper.
final 6 feet
At the road.
6 feet too far.
You
from
had said something about the last bush.
Yeah, 6 feet
Oh,
too
right.
far.
It's all the way on the left.
oh,
Can we state it to 4 feet?
4 feet.
4 feet?
Sure.
Let's make it
Step down from 6 feet to 4 feet within the final 4 feet
That's right.
from the
Final 4 feet would take her from 6
from the
foot
public right of way.
to 4 feet.
From the public right of way. Edge, from the edge of the public right
And that's okay with you?
Is that front bush?
That's that front bush.
That's 4 feet?
Mhm.
You know, we have measurements.
Okay. And then we'll continue, that the fence is permitted to be constructed with the finished side facing inward, so towards their front yard. All other fencing on the property will require to comply with zoning ordinance requirements for fencing. So that's the condition that, and if you would accept that condition, I know you all made a motion, if you would modify your motion to add this condition.
I'll modify my motion to make those conditions.
Okay,
I'll second it again.
all right, I'm good.
Agreed. So moved. Agreed. Yes, agreed.
We are going to recommend that we approve that motion with the step down requirement.
And
Yeah, okay.
That's,
yes, ma'am, thank you.
okay, we have another presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Busy evening this evening. We have, the final hearing this evening is for variance case VAR 24-06. Macaulay Properties is requesting a 4.75 foot variance to the minimum 20-foot front yard setback for a principal structure in a residential limited R1 district. This is relative to section 441 of the ordinance. This would permit a single-family dwelling on a non-conforming lot of record. The zoning ordinance, section 441, requires a minimum area of 12,000 square feet for a lot to be buildable in a residential limited R1 district. The subject property has an area of 11,133 square feet per the applicant's recent as-built survey, which is 800